Welcome to the debate. When we pack for a major trip, we tend to pack for the fantasy.
Oh, absolutely.
We pack the swimsuit for the beach, the incredibly optimistic walking shoes for those cobblestone streets. We might even pack a little phrase book so we can politely ask a local for directions to the museum.
Exactly. We prepare for leisure. We prepare to be gracious guests in a new place.
Right. But the second that departure board flashes red, or like the baggage carousel just stops spinning empty, being a polite guest is practically a liability. Suddenly, you don't need to know how to ask for the library. You need the vocabulary of a corporate litigator.
Yeah, it shifts fast.
It really does. So today, we're unpacking a highly controversial text, Survival of the Sharpest, turning travel disasters into triumphs. And it argues that surviving a travel disaster means entirely abandoning polite, textbook English. Instead, it tells you to use corporate power moves to, negotiate, escalate, and force accountability.
It's a fascinating read, really. It operates on the premise that when things go wrong, you're suddenly navigating a hostile landscape where normal social rules just vanish.
Exactly. And our focus today is whether this formalized corporate vocabulary genuinely empowers the traveler or if it just unnecessarily creates an adversarial dynamic that actually hinders the exact problem-solving you need.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I really believe this book gives travelers the exact armor they need. When you use precise formal vocabulary and escalation tactics, you force accountability for massive travel corporations during chaotic situations. You basically make the machine work for you.
And while I'll give you this, knowing exactly what to say is incredibly valuable. Treating travel disasters as adversarial battles requiring quote-unquote power moves, well, it strips the vital human element out of service interactions. It usually provokes a defensive rather than helpful response from the exact staff member you need to save you.
So to really understand this, we have to look at the power dynamics of a travel disaster. When you are standing at a counter, stranded, you are at a massive informational and structural disadvantage.
100%. You're completely in the dark.
Right, so emotion is your enemy here. The text rightly points out that if you approach a desk and say, I am very angry or I am exhausted, you are presenting a personal grievance.
Sure, because anger is subjective.
Exactly. It's subjective, which means it's easy for the corporation to dismiss. But when you upgrade that language to say, I am extremely dissatisfied, you fundamentally shift the dynamic. You are no longer a distraught tourist crying at a desk. You are participating in a professional negotiation.
I see the distinction, yeah.
Relying on specific terminology, like asking for a copy of their compensation policy rather than just saying, you need to give me my money back, it's the most empirical way to navigate this imbalance. You are speaking the only language that corporate algorithms actually understand.
Look, I agree that knowing your rights is essential. But the underlying framework of this text, which is literally titled Survival of the Sharpest, frames the frontline worker as an opponent in a zero-sum game.
Well,
Terms like rectify, unacceptable, and the constant push for escalation, they put the agent immediately on guard.
but don't you want them on guard? You need them to pay attention to you.
No, you want them engaged, not defensive. The text actually advises against asking a basic human question like, what happened, in favor of immediately demanding compensation options. To me, that fundamentally misunderstands the cooperative nature of real-world problem resolution. You are fighting the system by attacking the human trapped in it with you. That doesn't get you a hotel voucher. That gets you malicious compliance.
Actually apply this directly to the first major hurdle the text identifies, which is the airport limbo.
Oh, the worst.
Right? Imagine the scenario. You're at the gate. The atmosphere is incredibly tense. The airline has overbooked the flight, passengers are being bumped, or a massive delay just triggered a 12-hour layover you never asked for. In this scenario, the text advises focusing strictly on options for compensation. We're talking about securing a hotel stay or cash.
Rather than accepting like a mere food voucher that they just hand out to placate the crowd.
Precisely. Now, I see why you think that asking what happened is a humanizing approach, but let me give you a different perspective. Airlines are massive bureaucracies. Approaching the desk with emotion or asking for a narrative story of the delay is like trying to use a physical key on a digital smart lock.
Okay.
The system literally doesn't have a keyhole for your feelings or your curiosity. It only has a keypad that responds to specific terminology like involuntary denied boarding. By skipping the story and demanding options, you are typing the right code into the keypad. You are forcing them to treat you as a liability that needs to be settled.
I come at it from a different way. I agree wholeheartedly that knowing the precise terminology, knowing what overbooked or involuntary denied boarding actually means in a legal sense is incredibly useful. But explicitly advising the traveler to avoid asking what happened is strategically flawed because it ignores the actual mechanism of airline compensation.
Wait, how so? The compensation is tied to the delay, isn't it?
Not necessarily. Understanding the underlying cause of the delay is critical to knowing what compensation actually applies under Department of Transportation rules. Is it a weather event? Because weather is an act of God, which totally exempts airlines from providing hotel stays or cash compensation.
Right, weather is exempt.
Right. Or is it a mechanical failure or a staffing shortage, which puts the airline strictly on the hook? If you march up to the desk and input your keypad code, demanding compensation without establishing the factual baseline of why the flight is grounded, you risk looking entirely uninformed.
But wait, if it's a mechanical failure, they already know that. You don't need to ask them what happened to establish the facts. The facts exist in their system, regardless of your curiosity.
Yes, but the gate agent is well aware that you are stuck in limbo. Barking, "What are my options for compensation?" before even understanding the nature of the disruption makes you the problem passenger. If it's a hurricane, the system is locked. Demanding they override a weather code just makes you look adversarial for absolutely no reason.
The goal isn't to avoid looking adversarial, though. The goal is to be undeniable. When that red canceled text appears, the agent is suddenly dealing with 300 angry people. You have maybe 30 seconds of FaceTime at that desk. If you wait for a narrative explanation of the mechanical failure, you are wasting your window.
But you need that 30 seconds to build a bridge.
A bridge to where? When airlines overbook, they literally run an algorithm to calculate the acceptable financial loss of bumping passengers. It is a purely transactional, mathematical decision on their end. Approaching that transaction with conversational niceties puts the traveler at a disadvantage. You aren't asking for a favor, you are asking for the execution of a contract.
You are assuming the agent has the immediate authority and the bandwidth to execute that contract perfectly under duress. By stripping out the conversational element, you're treating the agent like a vending machine where you insert a power move and receive a hotel voucher.
I mean, in a way.
But here is the reality of airport tech. During a mass cancellation, the system breaks. You need that agent to go slightly out of their way to find a creative rerouting on a partner airline or to manually override a booking system. Adversarial, jargon-heavy demands do not inspire creative problem-solving. They inspire the agent to give you the absolute bare minimum required by law just to get you out of their face.
Well, but that algorithmic coldness you just mentioned at the ticket counter gets even worse when you lose the human face entirely. Let's talk about the baggage carousel. Because when your bag doesn't show up, you aren't even arguing with a gate agent anymore. You're arguing with a barcode scanner in another time zone.
Oh, the baggage black hole. It is the most isolating feeling in the world. You wait 40 minutes, the crowd thins out, the buzzer sounds, the belt stops. Your suitcase has just vanished into thin air.
You are incredibly vulnerable here, which is why I love the tech's strict instruction for this specific nightmare. It says you do not leave that airport without a property irregularity report, or PIR. And it explicitly tells you to use high-energy phrasal verbs. You don't just ask the baggage office to look for it, you instruct them to track down the bag. You explicitly ask the airline to reimburse you for essentials while you are forced to make do.
It is definitely firm.
It's necessary. The PIR is not just a piece of paper. Without a PIR, you are categorized in their backend system as a simple delayed claim. With a PIR under Department of Transportation rules, a federal clock starts ticking where they are financially liable for up to $3,800. The PIR literally moves you from the customer service database to the legal liability database.
Right.
If you are soft in this moment, relying on casual conversation, you will leave with nothing but a vague promise that they will call you when it turns up.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the actual psychological impact of the power moves table the text provides for these interactions?
I think the psychological impact is that you feel empowered instead of helpless.
You might feel empowered, but let's look at the person across the desk. Demanding to know how staff will rectify a situation places the burden entirely on the worker in a highly aggressive way. I'd like to see how you can rectify the situation. That assumes the baggage agent standing in front of you, who often works for a third-party contractor, by the way, not even the airline itself, has the power to rectify a logistical failure that happened 3,000 miles away.
Okay, but
If that worker is constrained by the same corporate bureaucracy you are fighting, demanding they rectify it doesn't empower you, it paralyzes them.
I disagree. The phrase rectify the situation does exactly what it's supposed to do. It shifts the cognitive load off the victim. When you are stranded without your essentials, you shouldn't be the one brainstorming solutions or navigating their tracking software.
Well, sure.
The airline lost the bag. The airline's representative should be the one outlining how they will reimburse you. The formality of the word rectify acts as a shield. It prevents the agent from offering a sympathetic sigh. It forces an action plan.
It demands an action plan, yes, but it does so by alienating the architect of that plan. Listen to the phrasing the text recommends. Since I am without my essentials, will the airline reimburse me for the cost of toiletries? Who actually talks like that? It sounds like you are reading a legal deposition.
It's precise.
If I am the baggage agent and someone marches up to me and recites the compensation policy like a court summons, I am giving them the bare minimum daily stipend the system allows.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to the person who approaches me and says, I have absolutely nothing for my meeting tomorrow. How do we handle this? For that person, I am much more likely to bend the rules, expedite an overnight stipend, or dig into the system to find exactly which sorting facility the bag is stuck in. The vocabulary of chaos assumes that power only flows through intimidation and formal compliance. It completely ignores the fact that the person behind the desk has discretionary power that is unlocked by human connection, not corporate posturing.
But discretionary power is rapidly vanishing in modern travel. And that brings us perfectly to the end of the trip, arriving at the hotel. You're exhausted. You've battled the airline, you've battled the baggage claim. You finally get to your room, and the ocean view you paid a premium for is literally a view of a dumpster.
Ah, the classic hotel horror.
Exactly. The room is a bait and switch. It's subpar, underwhelming, or downright dilapidated. The text outlines a specific protocol here called the 3 R's. Remain calm, record everything, request an escalation. Recording everything, meaning taking photos of the broken AC unit or the dumpster view, and immediately asking for a supervisor are vital evidence-based steps.
Okay.
You aren't complaining to the void, you are building an empirical case. Because if you don't build a case, you are stuck arguing over subjective interpretations of comfort with someone who has no power to fix it.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. I will agree with the first R. Remain calm is universal wisdom. As the text brilliantly puts it, panic ruins your grammar. We are in complete agreement there. When you panic, you lose the ability to articulate the problem clearly. But the immediate jump to record everything and request an escalation is highly combative.
Why is it combative to document what you were sold versus what you received?
Because you are treating an underwhelming hotel room like a crime scene, photographing the AC unit, marching down to the desk, and immediately demanding a supervisor bypasses the opportunity for the front desk agent to simply fix a mistake organically. It conflates a simple room assignment error with a malicious corporate conspiracy.
Why should you wait for an organic fix to what is often a systemic failure? A bait and switch is not a simple mistake. Hotels use property management systems that oversell their premium rooms, just like airlines overbook their seats. It is a structural misrepresentation of the product.
Even so,
If you tell the front desk, I'm afraid this room is unacceptable based on the listing, how can we resolve this? Is there an upgrade available? You are clearly and objectively defining the gap between the contract and the reality.
but look at the word unacceptable. It is a conversation ender. When you say, this is unacceptable, get me a supervisor, you are telling the frontline agent that they are entirely useless to you. You are turning an adventure with bad timing into a hostile deposition.
But they often are constrained by the system. Requesting an escalation to a supervisor is simply recognizing the operational hierarchy. The front desk agent often isn't authorized to grant that suite upgrade or comp a night stay without a manager's override code. By asking for the supervisor, you are actually saving the frontline worker the stress of trying to fix something above their pay grade.
You are saving time by burning goodwill, and in hospitality, goodwill is the absolute currency. The front desk agent actually holds an immense amount of localized power that isn't locked behind a manager's override.
Really?
Yes, they manage the physical inventory of the building. They know which standard room happens to have a slightly better layout. They can physically move you to a quiet corner. They can send up complimentary amenities. They can hand you a key to a vacant suite simply because they want to. But if you immediately escalate over their head, you strip them of their agency. The power move actually disempowers the very person uniquely positioned to advocate for you within their own building.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on the reality of the modern hospitality industry. That localized power you were talking about, it's gone.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Almost everything is algorithmic now. Upgrades are strictly tied to loyalty tiers and daily revenue targets baked into their software. The front desk agent's computer screen physically prevents them from issuing a refund or an upgrade without that supervisor's override. The text isn't telling you to be cruel to the agent. It's explicitly telling you to be a dissatisfied guest rather than an angry tourist. It's precisely because you don't want to scream, "Fix it now," that you use calculated terms. You are actually respecting the agent's limitations by asking for the person who holds the overriding authority.
There is a massive difference between understanding corporate architecture and weaponizing it. If your opening gambit at check-in is to pull out your phone, present a photograph of a dumpster like it's Exhibit A, declare the room dilapidated, and demand a supervisor to rectify the bait and switch, you are not a guest anymore. You are a hostile auditor.
You are a customer who didn't get what they paid for.
And you might get the room. Let's say the power move works and you get the upgrade. You have now ensured that every subsequent interaction at that hotel, with the concierge, with the restaurant staff, with housekeeping, will be strained and strictly transactional. The text assumes that the only successful outcome is the material one, getting the cash, getting the upgrade, getting the reimbursement. It completely ignores the emotional toll of carrying that adversarial armor throughout your entire journey. It's exhausting.
Right. But the emotional toll of not getting what you paid for, of sleeping in a dilapidated room, or spending 3 days without your essentials because you were too polite to demand the PIR, is arguably much worse. And I think that brings us to a natural point of reflection for today's discussion. Let's summarize our positions in light of this deep dive. At the end of the day, I believe survival of the sharpest provides a necessary, precise linguistic toolkit.
Right.
It protects travelers from being exploited by textbook polite compliance. When faced with the cold, algorithmic indifference of massive travel bureaucracies, using objective formal language forces the machinery to work for you. It replaces vulnerability with authority.
And my summary is that while the vocabulary provided is undeniably strong and conceptually precise, weaponizing that language through constant escalation and power moves risks alienating the humans required to actually solve the problem. You might win the battle for a voucher, but treating every logistical delay like a corporate dispute is an exhausting, combative way to travel. It destroys the cooperative nature of service.
But we certainly agree on the text's fundamental truth, which is wonderfully phrased. Panic ruins your grammar.
Oh, 100%.
Whether you are dealing with an airline algorithm or a hotel front desk, emotional outbursts screaming "fix it now" or yelling "give me my money" are universally counterproductive compared to measured, specific language.
Absolutely. We both recognize that clarity and calm are essential baseline requirements, even if we disagree profoundly on the tone and the tactical maneuvering that should follow that initial deep breath.
The inherent complexities of high-stress communication mean there is no single flawless approach. There is much more to explore within this material regarding how the language we choose quite literally shapes our reality and our outcomes in moments of crisis.
It really does. Ultimately, you have to decide if you are stepping up to that counter as a hardened negotiator or as a collaborative problem solver.
Which brings us back to packing our bags. Next time you fold in clothes, pack your shoes, and prepare for a trip, you have to ask yourself, when the departure board inevitably flashes red, which vocabulary will you be reaching for?